It's so funny you say that. Dude, I was going to put that on here, and I even thought about it in the office. I was walking in the office today, and I was like, should I bring up, I was like, so listeners, no, we're not cutting it out. We're not cutting it out.
We have to cut it out.
Yeah, here we are.
Why did you start recording, Rick?
Because you're so angry. Because here's the thing. We're doing this on this episode. I told you this week we're going to do defining moments or things that have defined us. I'm not angry. Dude, I was in such a good mood. I got the whole setup, the new setup, everything. Listen, I told you for 2 weeks now, I told you.
Yeah.
I sent you a text. Go read your text.
We're
going to do things that defined us.
Here's what we did.
Growing up, our TV shows, music, games, comics.
Sure. 100%.
Don't do
Guess
that.
What? Guess
don't
what, buddy?
do that.
Guess what? Why don't you go to our shared spreadsheet?
Our shared
spreadsheet
that's broken down.
That's broken down by episodes. And what we're going to record those days. I saw that, and we discussed. Go ahead, go read it through it right now.
Well,
and we said, what are we going to concentrate on this coming week? Which one are we going to pick for this week? Because we literally talked about. We'll break them down. Each episode can be one of those items. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
2 things. 1,
you can't.
I do want that mute button. 2,
this is what it took.
I think on this episode, people will comment. I was so... Why are people not commenting? I'm not going to be angry. I'm not going to be angry. But even my mom, like she always comments. She didn't comment on this one. All right, here's the thing.
All right, this one, what? Wait, this one.
The last episode.
Got it, with Ariel.
I know we're on episode 2. This is going to come out like the 5th one or whatever like that.
Yeah. Okay, so listen, we have to. You're so angry.
You're so
we're gonna reel it in.
Because I said, all right, here's what we're gonna do. I think this will get people texting or commenting, liking, and things like that.
We're not gonna. I'm not ready to go there yet. Because you know what you do? I want you to read through that text message that you're claiming we didn't discuss. That today is going to be television shows. Okay. So I could prepare. We've talked about this.
Okay.
You know I'm right.
Okay.
You know we said that this is going to be TV shows today.
You're right.
You know what I feel like? I feel like that's your work with Ariella, that you've just decided that it's not worth arguing, so you're just going to let it go.
So as a frame of reference, Ariella, if you're watching this episode, when we started talking personal stuff, I started to get a migraine. So
you told me about it last night.
No more personal stuff. All right. You guys show and tell. Let's start the episode. You guys show and tell.
Okay, but before we get started on any of that stuff, whatever your whole list is, and we can roll with it, whatever it may be. I had something I wanted to start with, which is a congratulations to you. I discovered that, and by discovered I mean made up in my head, that we are the most successful podcast with 2 best friends for the longest of any podcast. We've known each other since 5th grade. And so do the math. I think we were like 11 and 12 at that time when we met. And so that's been 36 years. So
do you know why I get migraines? No, seriously. This is do you remember?
You're yes. All
right, so kids, don't do this at home.
Oh,
Eric
I do remember
said it would be a good idea to do this. We were in 5th grade, maybe 4th grade. All right,
no, 5th grade. You came in 5th grade.
So you guys told me to stand up against the wall, breathe in really deep, and then as you did that, you guys, I don't know who did it. It wasn't you, I don't believe, but you pressed on my chest.
I did actually push on your chest.
Oh, you were the one that pushed me on the chest?
I remember. So here's the thing. This is what I remember. Okay. So we got to give.
Okay, well, wait.
We have to give a little more context.
Okay.
So the whole purpose, yes, do not do this at home. I don't know who did
No,
this.
if you're a parent, do it at home. Don't show your kids this.
This was a fad that went through between like 4th and 5th grade of like, we thought it was fun and cool to do. And which was make someone pass out. with their permission, with their consent. So what you had to do was you had to bend and standing. Bend your upper body over.
I didn't know that.
You had to bend over,
so
like
all the
you're
blood
touching your
rushes to your
toes,
head.
like you're touching your toes, and you had to stay there for like 30 seconds or something like that. You'd like time it, and then you'd stand up and breathe deep for like 5 breaths. And if you pushed on the chest,
Dude, I'm having trouble breathing right now. I think this is going to be the first time my mom hears this story.
Oh my gosh.
So I go up there and you guys press on my chest.
But you weren't the first. You weren't the first.
No, of course.
And this was
I was the last.
You were the last. So this was indoor recess. And I'm not going to name names, okay? But
you know who you are.
No, but listen, we know we probably, maybe, I don't know if they remember. They might not care about you that much.
Are the initials MG?
Is it? Yes, they are. So
yeah.
So
no last names here, but Mark,
but
you son of a bitch.
In typical Eric fashion, I wanted to make sure there were people on both sides of the person that was passing out, and I was in the front to make sure nobody fell and hurt themselves. So this was the common practice for when we were doing this to each other. I'll say, so this was indoor recess, but it happened at school, but it was rainy outside or something. So we were inside for indoor recess, and we were clearly by ourselves in the room at that time.
Yeah, teacher
doing this. I remember where we were, like at the back of the classroom,
like the wall,
the sink that's right, to the side, against
the last
that
thing
wall.
I remember of that day.
Oh my gosh! So we go through the whole process, and I push on your chest, and you pass out, and you fall to my right, your left, and MG is not there. He's not paying attention. That was his job. He's not paying attention. He doesn't care.
He's
and
in
you
fifth
go
grade.
down.
That was his job.
You go down like a dead body, and just go like boom off the ground and hit the ground.
I hit
your head, and then you went into seizure.
Yep.
You started seizuring, and of course we freaked out. And I don't recall all the you stopped. And you came to, and I don't know if you got sick.
Oh, I had a massive headache.
I know you went home. Dude, you went home for like 2 days. You went home then, and you didn't come to school, and we're like, oh my God, we killed him.
And in Michigan, the whole thing is like Verner's will cure everything. So it's like, just drink Verner's, stay a couple days off your feet, and you're fine.
Dude, I don't know if I've ever told that to anybody. I don't know if we've ever had this conversation.
Yeah. So what's funny is that was the first day I ever remember having a migraine. So my migraines, I would lose vision. It would start with a little dot, and it would expand where I lose all vision, and then I would get the most massive headache. Now it's I lose the vision, but it's like a half hour. I'll get it back, and then I'm fine. I don't have the headache. I'm a little woozy, I guess, afterwards. Now, so all that, I always said that it was that day that started the headache. I must have been like 22 years old. Is that right? Yeah, probably somewhere around there. Like 22 years old, and I was talking to my dad about it. About
doing the pass out thing?
No, about my migraines. I'm like,
oh,
I think I'm getting a migraine and he's like, really? He's like, what's that like? I'm like, well, I'm losing vision. And he goes, yeah, I get those. Dude, from 5th grade to 22 years old, I would get migraines like once every 3 months. Sometimes it was once or twice a month. And I know I've told him about it. He doesn't tell me about it till 22 years old.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
All right. Anyways, we went on that sidetrack.
We did, but just one like really random note about what I remember about that experience, because that day was not the first time we had done that. I remember doing it at like a party at like a guys, spending the night at each other's house, like on the weekend type thing. I remember doing it at MG's house. And I remember thinking I knew when it was going to work or not, because when I was leaned over and breathing, if I could feel a tingling in my back when it was happening.
Christ.
Like if I didn't feel the tingle in my back, but when I stood up, then I wouldn't pass out. If I did, then I stood up, and then I know it's really random, but it's something I remember from that experience.
The vanity in me would like to point out, I do not color my hair.
Oh,
I just got it cut, and I can't believe how gray I was, but I'm looking at it now.
What do you mean you can't believe how gray it was?
I mean, like when I'm looking at all the hair on the ground, it's gray, but like I don't.
No,
What am I, 20, 21, 25?
You can't see any gray.
I know. All right, what do you got? Show and tell.
Show and tell. Okay, so today's episode. Well, let's preface that, right? Today's episode was we're gonna do some episodes about things that defined us from our youth or childhood. You had it posted as professional career. Right?
Yeah.
So things that changed us in some way, shape, or form, or stuck with us, or partially defined us in some way, shape, or form. So you laid out a bunch of different mediums. We can call them.
Yeah, but let's preface this by saying it's not necessarily things that we like, but it's things that you can look back and say that was a defining show, movie, book, whatever it was.
Yeah, defined you in some fashion. It's interesting you say book because I don't think you had books
because I've only read one.
Well, I don't think you had books on the list, and so
no, of course not.
I wasn't thinking about books at all. But that should be part of it.
Because I read one book, Boy's Life, Kurt Bertel. That's for you.
I love that book because of Kurt and you, and then I read it. So we talked about today was going to be TV shows. We're going to talk about TV shows in some way, shape, or form. Interesting
Not according
that you say
to the text, but go ahead.
Yeah, it is. We can go back and we can back and review it. Interesting that you say it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you liked, because I started racking my brain about all the different types of TV shows and the ones that I ended up really kind of honing in on focusing, because you said you wanted it to be like 3 or 4, right? Like pick 3 or 4, type things.
Yeah, we don't want to do like top 10s or anything like that.
Right.
Just things that you pop in. And by the way, where I think the comments could come from is I would love to hear other people's, because there's always a story in this, and you'll see once we go through these lists, there's always kind of a story of why or how or when it defined you. And I would love to know people's stories.
How many things do you think have been answered that we have actually addressed them during the podcast?
A goose egg. And that's why I am so angry half the time, because people call me. They
don't they comment?
Dude, they'll email me. And I was like, this is a great comment. Can you please comment? And you're like, yeah, I will.
That's fun. You're not wrong. I'll get direct messages or text messages or things
by the way,
that.
Define audience. Every week my mom listens. David, my business partner, he listens. I'm always nervous when we drop an episode and he calls me, because sometimes nobody listens, but when he calls me, I'm like, oh no, did I say something?
What did I? Should I not have?
Oh, David.
Boy. Yeah, dude. So that's exactly what happened to me yesterday when you sent me the text message that said, WTF, Eric, and I went, oh no, did I screw something up? Did I post something I wasn't supposed to?
Dude, you called within 3 seconds of that. I wrote, what the fuck, Eric? And you called me, and I was like, hey, what time are we podcasting tomorrow?
I know. I was right in the middle of doing work stuff, and I was like, oh God, I screwed something up. I was like, what happened? And then you're like, yeah, what time are we podcasting? I'm like, well, seriously? That's how I'm
Did that warrant that?
I was supposed to translate that. Okay, so I started thinking about TV shows and things that were impactful in some way, shape, or form. And so I'm going to start with something. You just get out of the way right now. You just go, just say, why do you even have that? Just go ahead.
No. Why do you even have that? But I won't, because I will guarantee you I have an honorable mention on here that you'll be like, why do you, and the why is what this episode is. So go ahead.
Yeah. So this is sort of an honorable mention only because it was something from my childhood. However, I have to say, I completely understand it is now socially inappropriate, if that makes sense. And you'll get what I mean when I say it. But I have from.
Oh no. Well, it was a good run while we were here.
When I was since 5 years old, I have my Dukes of Hazzard t-shirt.
Oh, that's not that bad.
It's like it look with blood stain and all. Stain and all that's still on there. My original, it's I would have worn it, but it's probably 6 at the
yeah, you ain't fitting into that
at the time. And Confederate flag, General Lee, all that's all that's not real fun anymore. But that was sort of like an honorable mention. It was one of my favorite shows. That was one of my favorite t-shirts. That's why I bet
you could sell that at a vintage store for some decent money.
Maybe I have other plans for it. That's the reason I still have a bunch of my
Other
old
plans
t-shirts.
for it?
Yeah, I have plans. I used to store old t-shirts because I was going to do like a vintage t-shirt wall, like to put them inside boxes and like, hang them up.
Grew up.
No, and then I came up with a different plan. I have a different plan that I'm going to use them for. So that's why I have some of that stuff.
All right.
I was thinking that it would be fun if we could guess some that are on each other's lists.
Okay. All right. All right. So let's start with TV shows. Yeah, I know.
We're doing
Shut up. Okay. So I want to preface this, and we'll get into it in a second here, but I want to preface this by saying it's so interesting because my wife is Cuban Italian. Mom's from Cuba. Father's from Italy. She was born in Puerto Rico. So she doesn't have a whole frame of reference for some of these shows.
Oh,
I was trying
sure.
to talk to her about it, and she's like, nope, never heard of it.
Yeah.
All right. So I have 6 on here. Let me see if you can guess one.
So I'm going to name the 4. I'm going to name 4 that I thought of that might make your list. And
Okay.
and for
Wait,
different
can I guess
reasons.
what you're going to guess?
It's all over. No, let me guess, and then you tell me if that was right.
Okay.
Okay. So I think one of them is going to be Mad TV. Is Mad TV on the list? Not on the list.
No.
Okay.
No.
Not on the list. And you know why I say that?
Okay, which we'll get to, but it wasn't because of when it came out. It came out, what was it, late 90s?
Later. Yeah, it was later.
Yeah.
It was later. Yeah.
Right. Which,
okay.
But not a bad guess.
Okay. So my next guess is Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
That's an honorable mention.
Honorable mention. And then you got to throw different world in there, like kind of the extension or whatever. I don't know if you ever watched any of that.
I did, but not like the Fresh Prince was the first time, and why it's an honorable mention for me was like he had the hat on always. Like the way he moved his body, his physical comedy, Will Smith's physical comedy then.
Yeah.
And how he didn't take things all that serious, even though there were some serious situations. But then when it got serious, like all of that, it certainly kind of it played. And we were basketball players, so it started off with a basketball, outside shooting some hoops, So it was like, oh, he's a ball player, So like you kind of connected with that. We were young enough that we were somewhere around his age.
Right.
Honorable mention. It's a good guess.
Because I feel like the way you conducted yourself in our youth was very in line with Will Smith's character.
Yes. I was definitely influenced by him.
Yeah.
Just with Benji Herman's clock around my neck.
Okay. So these other 2 are like out there, but I had this thing and I was like, oh, I think I remember that this was a thing for you. I'm going to say A-Team. Is A-Team on your list?
It's not.
Dude, because okay. Do you remember why I say that?
Well, it was my favorite show, but it didn't like it. No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, this isn't necessarily shows that you like.
Sure.
Like the A-Team was, I watched it every week, and anytime it was on, I loved it. And it was on at night too, right? And not like you can watch the reruns now or back when we were, but I remember making time. God, was it on a Sunday night? I'd have to go back and look, but I remember watching that. That and like, what's the flying one? Something Airwolf or something.
Airwolf.
Like I remember always, and the Fall Guy, all that whole kind of genre of shows, those action-y shows.
Yeah.
Loved them. Like loved them.
I remember you loving Murdoch, which speaks a lot to your personality.
It does.
Like on so many levels.
Yeah.
So that's the piece that I remember from that. Okay. But then the last one I'm going to bring up, and I don't know why. I just know it's been a reference for you, like numerous times throughout the 36 years in our number 1 podcast, which is Fraggle Rock.
Great show. Loved it.
So there was something about Fraggle Rock with you
loved
that
it.
you. Yeah. That's what it was. Is that it? That was that you.
No,
it's just that you loved it.
When thinking about things of like, I don't know. Maybe we should define what defining means, because like those shows definitely I sat down and watched them every week. But like you said, like Will Smith, like I kind of took my personality in junior high and high school from him. I was like, oh, it's cool how he does this.
That feels very influential and defining to me, though.
What, Fraggle Rock?
No.
No,
Will Smith,
Will Smith. Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. You're right. And it like on my honorable mention, it's the first honorable mention. It's number 4.
Got it.
So because I said let's do 3, and then I started the honorable mentions.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think like so yeah, things that define you. Okay. So what I thought you were going to say, by the way, was Animaniacs.
Well, I have one more. Oh, Animaniacs. Oh God. Yeah. Ugh. Totally fell. Yes, that's so stupid that I didn't bring that up. The last one was not broadcast, but I think only available on VHS, and it was taken by storm.
It's so funny you say that, dude. I was gonna put that on here, and I even thought about it in the office. I was walking in the office today, and I was like, "Should I bring up?" I was like, "So, listeners, no, we're not cutting it out. We're not cutting it out.
We have to cut it out.
Just look up "Taken by Storm" orange VHS. No, don't do that. Don't look it up. Don't look it up. But just know we found it on the side of a road. Literally found the VHS on the side of the road.
Now we.
Oh, it was Jeff.
Yes.
No, was it you?
No, I was not part of that.
Okay, Jeff
I was one that got exposed to it as part of the gag after the fact.
If you did look up "Taken by Storm," what Jeff would do is play it, just pop in the VHS. He's like, "You guys got to see this." What was the movie that we?
It is Last American Virgin. I just told this story to Carrie that is just so stupid. That was another scenario where I was the same. I was exposed to it after the gag had started.
So the gag that we did, and it was a 2-hour gag every time.
And
we did it so many times, is we'd be like, we just saw the greatest movie of all time. And so we'd get people over, we'd have sleepovers every week. We'd be like, dude, you have to see this movie. And we play it, and it's by far the worst movie of all time. Garbage. Horrible. And then we'd get to the end, and everyone is so angry, and we're over there laughing. But the stupid thing is, we must have watched it like 20 times. So the gag really is on us.
So the premise of that movie is it's a kid that's going out to try and get some, right? And it's like his journey to continue to try in so many ways.
They didn't stray too far from the title.
No, they did not. And you get all the way to the end, and the credits start rolling, and he never. And I was like,
it's so pointless. What? It's not funny. There's nothing so redeeming about it. It's so bad. So bad.
No. Okay. So go ahead and give me. Oh, do you want to guess some of the ones that are on my list? You know, at least one and two.
Yeah, Highlander is gonna be up there,
right?
Because again, like I know you love the show, but it also was your personality. You got the ponytail,
right?
You had the sword, you had the trench coat. You'd go to conventions.
I don't know what you're talking about. So how do you want to do it? You want to dive in? You want to start with yours? Okay. Hit me.
Okay.
What do you got?
So
are you going bottom to top? Are they prioritized? Are they in order?
All right, let's go. You're saying in order. I didn't put them in order of
most influential or something.
I didn't do that. And so let me put my number 1 was South Park.
Oh.
Yeah. And
interesting.
So it is not even that I was like the biggest fan of South Park. I loved it. But do you remember the very first time we watched the first episode?
It was at your house.
It was at my house. Yeah. Because you weren't allowed to have anything like that.
It was in the family. Yeah. Well, it was on cable, and it was on cable,
right?
We didn't have cable.
Even if it wasn't.
No, we wouldn't be able to watch it at our house. Yeah.
But first of all, I don't know if it's because we were together or whatever. I don't think I've laughed harder to this date at a show.
I agree.
Because and right now it doesn't seem all that over the top, because you got things like Sunny and even like network television is a little more out there in terms of what they could push the boundaries on. But you've never seen anything like that
at that time,
comedy wise. And then the fact that it was kids, and the fact that it was a cartoon-ish. I know there was cutouts or whatever, but it opened my eyes of like, oh, this is what they mean by pushing the boundaries and doing it in a way, because I still have this conversation with Gigi all the time, is the content is more important than, I guess, the look of it. Because I think it looks cool and it's iconic. You know, when you see Cartman, he's an iconic television character.
Right.
Gigi, because she's traditional animation and does 3D animation, she thinks it looks horrible. And so she
Sure.
wouldn't watch it. Where to me is like the animation is always secondary to what the jokes were. But
Sure.
I don't know that, like, because I love Rick and Morty and those kind of things. But those look amazing. You know, it just looks high end where, you know, it looks like South Park was done in a, you know, backyards or a garage or something.
Yeah.
So it was also right about the time that I was leaving for Miami. What was it, like 96 it came out, and I left in 97. Maybe it's we'd have to go back and look at the time.
Yeah.
But it was in Miami because I had such a hard time adjusting to life in Miami, going to college there, is I would download with Real Player, I would download the episodes. It would take 2 days to download, and it would be so pixelated. But for some reason, it worked because the animation, you didn't really care about the animation anyways.
Yeah, sure,
Like,
sure.
So I could only down like 2, maybe 3 episodes because either the internet would crap out, then, you know, 2 days wasted or whatever. So I had 3 episodes I watched over and over and over again. And it was just one of those things where, thinking back, man, that changed the way I thought about television, changed the way I thought about comedy, everything.
Yeah.
I mean, so defining.
That's huge. That's huge. That makes total sense. So it's interesting though, because you're essentially saying your entire career started off some illegal downloads. Is that what I'm picking up on? Was that the moral of the story right there?
David, don't call me. Please don't call me, David. David, I don't do that anymore, David. I pay for Peacock. I pay for Hulu. I pay for Paramount Plus.
All the subscriptions.
All the things that we have shows on, I pay for. Look, ESPN's free with my cable package. You want me to pay? I'll pay. So
it's really funny. It's great. As soon as you said South Park, that's not on my list. That didn't even make my mentions, which it should have. Had I dug a little deeper. I do remember laughing uncontrollably when we were watching that. Tears streak, like constant. My face was wet from crying, from laughing so hard. I remember being on the ground. I was on the ground.
Yeah.
Like,
dude, because I mean, it was so amazing that evening, because I remember the promos for it and I was like, really, kids, like, whatever. And I don't even know why we watched it, but we watched it, and they would do these things that, like, when I'm trying to write something, I would put these things in there as a direct correlation to watching South Park, like kick the baby. Like, right, the first episode, they're just standing at the bus stop and they're like, kick the baby, and they kick the little kid. What's the
Stan?
No, it's Kyle's brother.
Yeah, Kyle's younger brother.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember his name. It's so defined. I don't remember his name. But he would kick the baby and he would go flying through the thing. Yeah. But they never bring up why they do that or anything.
Kick the baby. It was like fun. Yeah. It was like make him get kids pass out and during recess.
Right, exactly. Full circle, Eric. Nicely done.
So the one of the things, as soon as you said that, my brain instantly went to the huge satellite dish coming out of Cartman's ass. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Like to your point about the things are just completely so over the top. You know, like
so over the top. Like the anal probe came out and it's a satellite. Oh, so good. So good. It's brilliant.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
All right, let's go one with yours now. Or do you want to go through our whole list, or do you want to go
let's go back. We'll go back and forth.
Perfect.
And look, let's just get it out of the way because it's already been discussed a zillion times. You already landed on it, and I already showed you the katana, the sword. So
if I would have known you would have brought that.
Yeah.
And here's why it's a defining thing too, is we bought wooden swords.
So I have the footage. I was going to send you that.
Send it and we'll play it. And I actually still have my wooden sword.
You do?
I do. It's in my garage hanging up.
Because I was thinking about that yesterday. Mine broke.
And because of course it did.
But I remember you drew on yours. Like you did
I carved. You gave me your Dremel or something.
Yeah, you carved.
I carved so it would match. I mean, I carved like, you know, basketballs and stuff. Well, show the katana again so that you could see that it's like intricately done.
Yeah, it's got like characters and relief, carvings, on it.
I wish I would know. I would have brought my wooden one in because mine has a whole story on it.
Yeah, I remember that you did that. I actually yesterday I did think it was carbines because I was like, there's no way it was carbines.
I'll film it and put it on here.
That's super fun. So some of the footage that we have is us idiots out in the front yard doing like practicing choreographed fight scenes because we wanted to like film something fun. And the thing I find really interesting
is this
about
the one with Mustang?
Yes. So I was going to ask you if you want. I was going to ask you. I have multiple clips.
Show the only good one
of you and I. Well, I have multiple clips with you and I, but I've got one with our friend Mikey D that was actually filming at the time, and his Mustang, vintage '67 Mustang, was sitting in the driveway. And you and I were doing our little practice scene, and it's just like a totally random thing. But when you like reacted, you accidentally let go
like
of
this
it.
and through
and let go. It hit his Mustang, his vintage Mustang. Oh! All right, we'll move away from the car. You do anything?
And you just go, ooh.
Oh, yeah, like it was like over and over because you hear it, it just goes smack. He's filming, he goes, oh, and then you go, oh, and I was like, you like we all reacted. We watched it over and over. It's fun. It's very funny. Yeah. So one of the things I find interesting about that is you give me so much shit associated with loving the Highlander, but somehow you were sucked into it in some way, shape, or form.
Dude, it's the wedgies thing. It's like, what am I going to do? Stay home just while you guys are all hanging out? Of course not. So I'm going to go back and get another wedgie. I have to learn how to sword fight. I'd have everyone hung out at your house. So I had to do the things that you would like, even though there's nothing more than a chick repellent than standing in the front yard with you in your trench coat battling with wooden sword.
Thank God we were on the cul-de-sac, so there wasn't a lot of traffic.
That was that was going by.
So you've made reference to this in the past as well while we're on it, and so we can kind of talk about that because I have autographed stuff. So this was all this Adrian Paul. That's all stuff from going to the Highlander conventions and like meeting them and then having them sign stuff. Peter Wingfield, who played Mythos, and Elizabeth Grayson, who played Amanda, and
she kissed it.
She did. I asked her to.
Oh my God! Did you show her the videos of you sword fighting?
Plead the fifth.
And I will say, well, here I'll show you this. So and then that's like I got all three to sign like one Adrian Paul and Amanda and Stan Kirsch. Stan Kirsch died actually.
Oh my God!
I didn't remember that actually. It was when I went to go look up something. I don't remember. I went to go look something up with the show. Oh, I went to go look up the years that it ran. So it ran between 92 and 98. So we were kind of catching it toward the end. They had like a lot of seasons. I had a whole collection of stuff. We can pull up some pictures, show some pictures you want. Like it was like the shelves in my bedroom that had like the VHS tape collection and all the cards and the sword and all the things So so the one thing I will say, and one thing that I think is fantastic that came out of it was Jim Burns' music. So Jim Burns, who was, musician first, he'd been a musician from the early, like in the 60s and 70s. He had albums and stuff back then. He was an actor who was on the show, and they actually built some of that into to the show. So Jim's character was Joe Dawson. Joe had a jazz bar, and so they would often like meet at that bar and like have musicians playing, and he would play some of his songs and stuff like that on the show sometimes.
And he's blues, right? Like I like
blues.
Yeah, I like his music. You know what the funny thing is about him that you told me from the convention?
What's that?
He's got no legs.
It's in the show. I
watch. Believe me, there was no better sleeps I've ever had. That's when I ate my ring. It's when I was watching a Highlander.
So good callback. So he lost his legs in an accident, in a car accident. And so it's
interesting because I never thought, because he's always walking with a cane in the show.
He was. They didn't show, I don't believe they ever showed him with no legs in the show. I don't recall that.
How did you realize he had no legs?
I don't remember. Wherever AOL chat I was in at the time,
really?
talking about stuff. I don't know. I don't remember. I think there was I think, you know, like whatever the early versions of Wikipedia, you know, that had like information about people and about the actors and stuff like that.
Okay.
Learning about that kind of stuff. But you know, the show itself, it was one of those things that I loved the immortal aspect, but how they played that of like being able to go back in time. So I always connected with like that Scottish culture. His character was Scottish and from like way back in the day. And I love jumping through time, but just because he was immortal and that was his, you know, his piece of the timeline that they were showing. And he was a badass. He knew martial arts. He knew like he had a dojo and he knew martial arts and then his sword play and stuff like that. Like I loved it. I don't know, everything about it I loved at the time. You bring up something that I wanted to touch on with every one of these shows that we're going to talk about here, which is, does it still hold up? Right. So what was so influential for us back in the day? Is it still the type of thing you look at and you're like, oh, that still holds up? Because I went back to Highlander. I went back to one of my favorite episodes, which was Homeland, which they did a lot of filming back in Scotland.
That's how we met. How we were introduced to Lorena McKennitt.
Yes. So she had a song that they opened to, a very, very famous song that they opened with. And I went back and watched it, and I did not get very far into the episode and said, this is pretty much unwatchable.
Like, wow.
I loved it for the time, but could I say, honestly, like it still holds up? Like I would go back and rewatch this and enjoy it. It doesn't. It just doesn't. Like I think it's fun in certain ways because of all the concepts I loved originally, but just going back there, and I loved that episode so much. And I went back, I was like, oh, this is so tough to watch. So tough. So it doesn't. So it was very impactful for me on many levels. Yes, my trench coat that I still have, because of course I do, that's hanging in the closet. I used to wear it all the time. I wore that trench coat. It'll be in the video. You'll see me in it in the video. It was very impactful for me, multiple ways. Okay, what's your number 2?
All right. So a little history. You know how influential this was for people before us was Archie Bunker?
Yeah.
And it was the first time where I think people go, well, that's really what my family was. Like before then it was Leave It to Beaver and those things.
I know
what do you think it is?
This.
What do you think it is?
It's Married with Children.
Dude. So, it was the first time I was like, that's my family. It was it. And by the way, I'm rewatching them all now. They still hold up. If you like that brand of comedy, every episode's the same, you know, but there's jokes in there that were far ahead of what was on any network television.
Oh, wow.
But it was the first time I remember going, I can relate with those people more than anyone else on TV.
Wow.
And especially the dad, like for some reason, and that my dad wasn't like him. My dad wasn't a shoe salesman. You know, I relate like him. Like he had this kind of he never got mad. He would always have jokes and stuff. That was kind of my dad. Like he would get mad, but
what's interesting is was it he never got mad or he was always mad?
No, because here's the thing. There's this episode, and by the way, I need shows to watch to help me fall asleep. Otherwise, I will not sleep. So I have to put them on. So there was this episode where these aliens come on, and I'm half asleep and stuff. So I'm like, is there aliens? And so he tries to take a picture of these aliens. And so he finally goes and they finally come and he's got the camera and they start posing for it and stuff. So he takes it to a development at like a Kodak. You
had to get film developed.
You had to get film developed. And the guy at the thing is just like, hey, this is my first day. I ruined all the photos. And he's like, oh. So he takes them and because there was $1 million reward for anyone that could show proof of aliens. So the aliens come back after that and they're kind of like, hey, do you want us to take another photo? And he's like, let me tell you something about me. No matter how many times I take this picture, I lose every day. So he just gave up in life and he's always looking back. He's like me in the fact he's always looking back at the glory days. Four touchdowns at Polk High School. I mean, like just so good. And it was also like, no, do I think it was groundbreaking? I thought probably Archie Bunker and the Jeffersons were probably more groundbreaking for television, but being young, like I couldn't relate to those people, right? And plus, Married with Children was on when I was younger. I have to go back to see when it. So it was just one of these things. Every week I had to watch that.
Yeah. It was iconic. So what's interesting, it sort of has that same theme because it did definitely push the boundaries in different ways in terms of like interaction with like just like how he would like put down his wife or put down his like some of that humor you're referencing, but also even just like the famous pose of leaning back on the couch and sticking his hand down his pants.
Oh yeah,
right? You know, like it would just like it's controversial and in different ways.
Back then, certainly.
Yeah, exactly.
And there was definitely things, and I was wondering, does it like could you do that now? And the answer is probably they do a good job of not going overboard. Like Archie Bunker, I don't know if you could make that exact show now.
Yeah,
you can't. Look, you can because Sonny does it, right? Like Philadelphia, Rick and Morty do it. Like, so you can. It's just not on network television. It's harder to do that stuff.
Yeah. A side note associated with that. As soon as you brought it up and referenced it, I can't not hear the Love and Marriage song in the back of my head. And I was just which is the opening theme. And I was just in Chicago over the summer and saw the fountain that every time I go by it, I'm in there every so often, or every time I go by, I'm like, look, Married with Children fountain. There it is.
Yeah. It's funny too, because it is so long. That opening credits is so long. We'll have to time it. I'm going to say it's probably a minute. So you're sitting there for a minute every time. And because I watch it back to back to back.
Love and marriage. Oh, that's hilarious. That's a good one. That's a good one for you. This is fun because I didn't think of both of that. The multiple things you referenced, I was like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. I remember that now. But I just digging, it didn't come to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, my number 2, which is honestly, if we're going down the path of, I feel like is probably most influential in different ways, is Transformers from my childhood. Yeah. So the animation Transformers. So my favorite character. So everybody loves Optimus. I love Optimus too. But my favorite character was Soundwave from the original show. And if you think about him he turned into a cassette deck, right? And so the Transformers, go from some, usually a vehicle mode or whatever into a robot, right? They transform into a robot. Yes, I know everybody knows Transformers, but for those, whatever. That Soundwave as a whole represents so much of me now as an adult in terms of the things that I love and passion. So it's got audio because it's a cassette player, audio / music. It's got robotics, which is electronics, which I love, and it's mechanical because it transforms from one thing into another. And so I think it's really interesting. I remember when I was thinking about going through the list and went back to, I made a reference to this on the Ariel episode, which was like the that I saw on that one tattoo that said like the memory is unclear, but the feeling remains. I remember the feeling of wanting to run home off of the bus to make sure that I could get to in front of the TV to be able to watch the Transformers episodes and how much I loved them. That said, I of course have the whatever 25th anniversary. Now we're on 40th, right? That, but I have the DVD box set that, and I remember going back at the time and watching it. And when you go back and you watch with adult eyes, onto so many things, it's like, what that doesn't even make sense. How you start getting caught up on certain things. You're like, wait a minute, what he pulls this trailer, but the trailer just disappears when he transforms. What happens to this? There's so many things you look at now. You're like, oh, that doesn't make sense. When you're a kid and this is just this magical world of robots and stuff, it doesn't. None of that registers. None of it.
And some
matters.
Exec is like, listen, we need to push more toys for Christmas.
No question.
So let's make a tape deck. It's like, all right, what is a tape deck doing while it's in tape deck mode? Sitting there.
So one of the reasons I fell in love with him is the character, the Soundwave character, had a really cool like vocoder voice. It was very different than the rest, but so that was the thing like totally attracted me first. But interestingly, I never had the Soundwave Transformer as a kid. It was like one of those things that like never played out. Like it was my favorite. I loved it, but I never ended up getting one. I don't know if it's because it was only for sale during certain time frames, and then I kind of missed out on that. It's not like we had eBay back then that was easy to to go and get. But the one that I did have was named Blaster. And Blaster was also a boombox. He was a little bit like larger, and he was a boombox, and he had the same thing with the cassettes that could go inside of his chest that opened up, and then the cassettes transformed into robots as well. So I have Blaster. These are the remakes. Those are the original boxes. They're remakes. But one other thing that I'm just gonna reference is that I think is really fun. They've also started doing some crossovers with some themed crossovers, and one of the latest things that they released was Back to the Future. So they have the Back to the Future car that transforms into, they call them Gigawatt.
Why didn't you send that to me? Send me a link. I want to get one of those.
I'm showing it to you now.
That's really cool.
Yeah, they have a bunch of different really cool, fun, like crossovers, I guess it would be the term.
If only someone watches this who has the opportunity to buy me birthday gifts.
Oh, I'm gonna assume you're going with Gigi on this one, but
yeah, Gigi, are you listening? Write it down.
I don't know. So Transformers has always stuck with me ever since from a very young age, and I remember watching other shows and liking other shows, but nothing stuck with me like that. And I think it's so cool now that we're at this point where it's like indistinguishable from a graphic standpoint, and in the movies and stuff like that. There are so many things now in adulthood that you get to watch on the big screen now and go like, oh, like that's like what I imagined it when I was a kid, about what that would look like, or how that would be to actually interact with that kind of stuff. That just takes me back to being a kid. I love it. So, yep. Nice. Transformers.
Nice.
All right. What do you got? What's next?
All right. This one, it's a great show. I still like it, is Friends. So that's a weird one because it certainly didn't define my personality or anything like that. But two things that came out of Friends is one is it really was around the time, especially like in the thick of it, when I went to Miami. So this whole thing of like friends coming together, like I had this like idea of what I thought friends should be when you meet new people. And so there was that. But that's not really the defining part of it. The defining part was when I was thinking about like why I said pre-career, because I was like, well, I don't even really recall why I wanted to get in television, or not. I knew I always wanted to be in television, but I didn't understand how I got here stepwise. And then looking back and analyzing this, I remember watching Friends rerun, and there was a ad for a like 2-week film school on it. And I was like, whoa, you can go to school to be a filmmaker? I hate that word, by the way, filmmaker.
So this was when you were back home still.
Correct.
You're still in Michigan.
Correct. And I remember
high school then.
No, college. It was
okay.
Because it was a rerun, and I remember it was during the day, and that's when they show all those infomercials. And I remember going, and remember I was also working at the movie theater, and so which is also what kind of got me wanting to do this. I was like, so wait, people get to do this for a living? So and I remember I was working at the movie theater in E&M, and I remember Kurt Bertel, after I talked to him about the commercial, I wasn't working at the movie theater, and I had to have been working at E&M. But anyways, when I talked to Kurt about it, I was like, dude, there's this film school, like maybe I should do it. Like it's only 2 weeks or whatever like that. And I don't know if he said he'll chime in here because he'll remember. His memory is just sick.
He'll tell you exactly what it was said.
Right. But I remember talking to him about it, and I don't know if he said, well, maybe you should do that for like go to college for it. And so it got me talking to my ex-girlfriend, and she kind of did the research, and she's like, "Oh, here's this film school." And
girlfriend at the time,
girlfriend at the time,
yeah.
She got all the paperwork and everything, and it was like I had that kind of pit in my stomach feeling of like, wait, can I actually do this? And I got to talk to my mom about like, I want to leave Michigan and go to Miami.
That's interesting. I didn't remember any of that,
dude. In all honesty, it wasn't until I went down this path, because my next honorable mention is what got bumped from that. But it was because it was really this trip down to like, I remember filling out the packets. I remember you helping me and filming and doing all these different things, but I don't remember like why I got the idea that you could actually do this. And it was because really of this interesting stupid commercial. Wow. And by the way, those commercials, like, you know, I can't imagine those schools are legit. I mean, maybe they're legit. I don't know, but it's what got me.
Wow.
Frame of mind.
And it's so interesting you say that, because when you brought it up, I was like, this is a total cop out. Like, this has nothing, right? We never talked about Friends. I remember Friends always being on, right? I mean, there was always, and it was clearly very influential in pop culture in so many ways, right?
Right.
Like across the board.
If it wasn't a good enough show, I wouldn't have watched it that day.
Right.
I wouldn't have been like, I'll just keep this on or whatever. And then therefore I wouldn't have seen that infomercial or commercial, whatever it was.
I don't think I don't know if I ever heard any of that. I don't know if I've ever.
Probably not. I mean, if you did, it would have been, hey, I saw this commercial, you know, let's sword fight.
What? Focus on the moves, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You keep screwing this up. Our choreography was on point. Okay. The next one on my list is, this is one of the ones that so I have an honorable mention that I'll mention with this as well that didn't make the list, but it's somewhat because it falls into the same category, which is the emotion associated with that. Like, so I'll start with what it is, and it's the Wonder Years. So the Wonder Years was incredibly. If I would have
thought hard enough, I would have said that for you.
So that's one of the one I said when you said Life Goes On. Like the Wonder Years for me was really impactful, and there's something about that, like middle class suburban, you know, like living as 60s, 70s.
That's your Married with Children. That was your family.
Yeah. It's on many levels. I connected with that so much. The best friend, Paul Pfeiffer, Kevin Arnold.
I won't say here, but I know who your Mini Cooper was.
So Winnie Cooper.
Oh, Winnie Cooper.
Yeah,
Winnie.
So one of the reasons. So there's a couple things about that. I mean, like, I'm a sucker. I've never dove into this with a therapist or whatever, but I am such a sucker.
This is your next meeting.
I'm such a sucker for that innocence of childhood scenario, and so that adult narrated look back at the childhood thing gets me so much. It's so ingrained in me for some reason, and there might be a level that's unhealthy, because there's a part of it that is like that loss of the innocence of childhood that's like just heartbreaking for me, like tragic in so many ways, that you don't hang up, like, you know, it just gets, you know, beat out of you as you get older, and, you know, in certain ways. But I remember, it's this and the other show, one of the other honorable mention I'll mention, I remember being emotionally affected by the end of that show. And like, so like that Kevin and Winnie didn't end up together, and they figured out that wasn't going to be the thing and how it was going to play out for them. And then Kevin's dad passing, like the reference to like the dad passing away. I just remember being emotionally affected by it. And I, you know, when I was younger, I was very much that, like, I'm a rock, you know, kind of type thing. I don't cry. I'm a, you know, tough guy type thing. I was like, God, that really, really hit me. So it's always, this is the one that I thought to myself, I haven't seen this in so long, and I know it's on like Netflix or one of the, you know, one of the streaming services, that I should go back and watch and see if it really still holds up, right? Like, if,
I would imagine it does.
If you go through it. I feel like it would. I feel like of all the things that it would hold up, because it's period, and you know there's not going to be like this weird, like, oh, but we didn't have cell phones then, or, you know, whatever, because it's 60s, 70s.
It's period.
It can stand on its own.
And it was personal. It was more of a drama than a comedy. So like, drama typically holds up longer than a comedy.
Yeah. I can.
Unless it's the Highlander.
Yeah. So
that's a good one.
The Wonder
That's a good
Years.
one.
Do you have a so then on that same path, the other one, the honorable mention that kind of got bumped off the list was Cheers. It was Cheers.
So when you were talking about the emotion that when the last episode, when they turn off, Sam turns off the light.
I just told Carrie that same thing when he it was
So
the only
emotional.
time it was that was the thing that hit me, that's why it was on my list, because that whole the door was always open, the bar was always open, and he turned someone away and said, sorry, we're closed, and turn off. I was like, oh, heart-wrenching. And so that was that same time frame, because that ran from 82 to 93. So Wonder Years was 88 to 93, and so that 93 was in the same year that had very impactful parts for me that I was just like, ooh, that was and Cheers was just fun. There's so many things that as a kid,
it still holds up, by the way.
It does
holds up
for sure, because it's very people centric. It's very relationship centric. And it was you didn't quite get all of it when we were as young as we were, right? Mm-hmm. That when you watch it as an adult, you're like, oh, there's some deep and funny stuff here, and
so deep. And what's his name? Norm. Norm's a flat out alcoholic, and they address it.
Totally.
But when you're a kid, he's like, oh, he's there because he doesn't want to go to his wife, and it's all funny and stuff. It's they do a really good job, and it's it's so nostalgic. Just the set is nostalgic. Sam and Diane, and then Christy Alley when she came out, everything God, it's a great show. And that's the thing. Iconic. It's we could go on a million tangents of just great shows, but Cheers, great show, but it never defined me, and
it didn't make my final list just because sort of that same thing. It was just one of those things that same time frame, something that hit me emotionally that stuck with me. The fact that I started thinking about this and what TV shows impacted me in some way, and that popped out, was because of that. I just find it interesting, as people are going through their journey of growing up and figuring out who they are and what what affects them in whatever ways. I find that interesting. I had one other that on my list, so I did 4 with the honorable mention. That did you have one more, or were you done?
I have an honorable mention, but we'll end with it. So go ahead.
So I don't know how this one's going to resonate with you, but this one was one that I was.
Wait, tell me who's in it, and I'll tell you if or give me a hint, and I'll see if I can guess.
I can't. You're going to know instantly.
Oh,
There's
really?
no way. Yeah, I would.
Well, who cares? Give me a hint.
David Duchovny.
Oh, X-Files?
Yes.
Oh.
So X-Files was my modern day Twilight Zone. It was so intriguing for me. I remember loving watching that. And I don't know if, other than Highlander, which was weird because it was on at midnight on Sunday nights or whatever, I don't know if there was another show that I really was excited about trying to see those episodes, because it was so mysterious and so paranormal, or these phenomenons that were unexplained and done so well in the Mulder and Scully, relationship and stuff and then they made the movie, that tied in with the show and stuff. I loved watching that. So I don't know I don't know if it's defined me, other than maybe that mental exploration of thinking about and going down a regular path of the unknown, and being, open to the unknown, or thinking about it in that regard. And maybe that's, maybe that helped to change mentality in some ways. It is defining. I just don't remember another show that I was so excited, as I was a little bit older, to watch than that one.
Sure.
So
that's interesting. Your hint, you would go right to the main actor. You could say Smokey Man or Sci-Fi or Aliens or.
I think any of those you would have got it right away.
Maybe Smokey Man. Yeah.
So.
All right, so my last honorable mention is all right. I'll give you the time. Yeah.
Okay, I had one that
if you guess this,
I had one I thought might be on your list that I'm going to throw out there. I thought might be on there, but then I let it go. Is it
Family Ties?
Dude, that is on my honorable mentions, though. It's down far. It's down far because it fell. And why was honorable mention? It just fell into. It's just a good show. Like, sure, I watched it, watched it, but it's not. It didn't define me in any way.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
all right, let me give you a couple hints. This was on Channel 20 every night. Either it was a late night show, so either 10 or 11.
Cosby Show.
No, Jesus. Trying to get us canceled. Okay. Channel 20 showed the reruns at night. It was an hour-long drama.
Ooh.
And here's the kicker. If you don't get it by this, then I just have to tell you. It was very religious.
Very religious.
Yeah.
So the first thing that popped into my head was Highway to Heaven. Highway
to Heaven.
Wow.
Yeah, right? It's probably the worst show of all time. But so then why is it on my defining list? Because do you remember Benji let me borrow that little TV?
Yeah, the gray one.
I mean, when I say little, that thing was it was pretty big.
Well, the screen was
portable.
Dude, that ended up in our household for
I bet it did.
Decades. It might still be in my parents' house.
I'm sure it is.
Honest.
There's no way it's not. So he let me borrow that, which I'm sure you stole it from me.
It was black and white.
And the screen was tiny, but the whole thing was big. But the thing was, it was portable. Yeah. So what would happen is every night I would go under my bed, put all the covers down so my mom couldn't see the light. She's probably hearing this for the first time too. So I would sit there and watch whatever was on, and that was the only thing on. Because like
time frame.
Yeah, because
you probably couldn't get the other. Oh, it's gonna be like 60 minutes or some other thing.
But no, remember, certain channels went off the air.
Yeah, but how late are you talking about? How late were you staying up?
Maybe it was midnight. Maybe this was midnight. And and I was like probably junior high, or maybe it had to have been junior high or elementary. But I was staying up like that late, and I found it to be amazing that you could sit and watch television. And it was funny because the same ex-girlfriend that we've talked about so many times, I would put on any sports thing. It could be like, who could throw a cup the farthest, and I'll sit and watch it. And she commented one day, because I was watching some like ESPN 20 and some stupid sport was on. She's like, you just like sports. That was one of the things where I go, I just like television. I just like the process of watching television, of entertaining, of all those things. So it's kind of one of those things where that really got me into, I just like the idea of moving pictures that you cut together with sound and all. It was so cool. And just like sitting there with this thing on my stomach, because you remember our beds were low, so I had like squeeze in there and it barely fit, and like I couldn't move or anything.
So that's a fun intro to what we'll do on maybe the next episode, but on a future episode, which was the technology that defined us, right? What you're talking about right there is completely technology related, and we went through an era.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about your mini disc player, your in-dash mini disc player,
unlike no other. I like quite literally, right? With technology going from our youth to where we're at now is it's crazy. So we'll touch on that.
The only thing I could say, like technology wise, we'll get into it, is the shift to AI now is going to do the same thing that we went through. Yeah, like, for sure. Things were just in and out. Like this is the next thing. Now it's not. Next thing. Now it's not.
Yeah. I get it. You're not wrong. We'll do so. Okay, so I'm gonna list off like the other things that I was quickly that I was contemplating should be on my list, which kind of sounds like you had one too as well. One that almost made the list for me was Quantum Leap. I really liked Quantum Leap. That concept of going into somebody else's body and having to take on their their challenge and their situation, I thought was really interesting. One I thought was super fun is Elf. I loved Elf. I
still have the Elf stuffed animal you gave me.
You do still have it? I didn't give it to you. I think you won it in one of the white elephants. Yeah. And I had there's like the mini. It was like a kid's McDonald's sweatshirt that's on him. I had the Elf stuffy that was on there. Who's the Boss was on my list because of Alyssa Milano. Like, I remember that being like my first crush when I was a kid. Like, I was like, great, but a fun show. It was a cool concept, fun show. Loved Knight Rider because the car, the technology, everything that went along with that. Show's lame, but loved MacGyver. MacGyver was so like, that's me like figuring stuff out, like all the little things. And then I referenced the other ones, but those are some ones that I was like, oh, they're on my semi honorable mention list.
All right, so let's go back to people commenting. I would love to read people's comments on, but don't just give us a show, because it's not just about great shows.
Well, you can do if you'd like to just give us the show, please just give us the show.
Yeah,
that's fine. We'll take the comment, but
I have someone, so every time I think about this, and by the way, she does comment a lot. She's put pictures up. I don't want to say her name, Jenny, but it's one of these things where, like, anytime she doesn't, I think about her when she doesn't comment, and I get angry. I don't know why.
You have a thing.
By the way, she sent me a what I wrote in her
yearbook.
Yeah, let me see if I can. Well, we should end with this. This is what I wrote in her yearbook. So if you're listening to this and you don't comment.
So this is because we posted about pictures. So based on our first episode about pictures, post pictures of I said me, but it was of us, and then people ended posting pictures of Rick, which was great. And then there were some comments associated with that. This is an extension of our first episode from the season.
Yeah. All right. So this is what I wrote in her. Help me. You knew me back then, so help me decode this. Ready?
Oh boy.
Yo. Okay. What's up in your world of stupid people? Just joking. I love you, honey, but keep the feeling going to the max, dude.
So that feels like a lot of nonsense that is just like strung together.
That sums up my whole childhood.
It does really, on so many ways. It doesn't surprise me. And it's kind of one of those things. I mean, if you went into 12 other yearbooks, it probably said something similar, like to the other people. I don't know. It's like, what do you write? What do you write in yearbooks? Now we know. Now we know.
I'm the first person to sign on the crack.
Feel like we should end there. Are we done?